Hey, Yvonne, how you doing?
Hey, Charles.
You doing okay?
I'm doing okay, yes.
Good. How'd your doctor's appointment go the other day?
That's an old stuff. It's been taken care of.
Okay.
It's my urologist, and I'm good with her, and she's good with me.
Okay.
And what's good about her, she has short fingers. So
Oh.
That's a good thing.
I guess so. Yeah. Wow.
I had an issue with prostate cancer several years back, and she took care of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I owe her a lot,
Uh-huh.
and I see her once a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all good.
Glad to hear that. Yeah, that's not, none of that stuff is a lot of fun. So,
No. Let me just mute myself for a second, and I'll relocate myself.
oh, okay. Do what you got to do. We got plenty of time.
Hello.
Hey, Veronica, how you doing?
Oh, I'm good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing.
Hello.
Hello.
All right, we have Eloise and
Yeah.
Veronica and Alon. So, okay. Happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday.
Yes.
We're halfway through.
Yeah, it's going fast.
Sure does go fast.
It
Wow.
does. You know, it's amazing. You know, it's like within this last year and a half, it has just absolutely blown by
Mm-hmm.
so quickly. And you know, you would think, you know, that being locked away and isolated, that the time would move very slowly, but I don't know. You know, I get up, you know, and I guess because I'm busy, it just seems to move by really, really quickly. And before you know it, it's the end of the day, and
Right.
you don't have nearly, you know, as much stuff done as you wanted to get done. You know, it's like, well, gee, I thought I could get all that. Yeah, no, maybe not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and now to add to that, if you're trying to do something out in the world, right? You're trying to contact somebody, you're trying to get information, something like that. Now it seems like it takes 2 or 3 times longer because, you know, you can't go there, you can't actually talk to anybody. So if you're dealing with like, well, like right now, you know, I'm trying to get a hold of somebody in the personnel department at Fulton County, but most of them are not in the office. They're all at home. So I have their office number. I can leave them a message on their office line, but guess what? You're not ever going to get a call back. You know, and so you send emails, you know, knowing that they have email at home, and still you don't get a response for sometimes days, weeks, you know. It's like, I just want to ask this one little thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not understanding why they're not responsive. I
Oh,
mean, and they're still, I know my HR department, because I still have to deal with them for my other stuff,
mhm.
because all my benefits come out of New Jersey. They don't come out of Georgia.
Right.
They do get back to me, and if I need to set up an appointment, they will set it up on Zoom. So that's why I'm not understanding why they're not doing that here.
Well, I can give you a somewhat of a clue. Okay. And that is that the powers that be, whoever that was, decided early on that if they're going to send everybody home to work, that everyone is going to have to keep track of a timesheet with every little task that they do all day long so that they can ensure
Oh,
that people are actually working. And so I would say that the vast majority of people's time is trying to keep up with their timesheets, you know, and just, you know, justify the fact that they're being at home and that they're working and that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I understand that part of it, you know, because I have to go through that too. And it's,
I understand that too.
yeah,
But
you know,
I wonder if they're not trying, these businesses especially, they have all these electronic answering devices. And I wonder if they're just not trying to distract you or discourage you from talking to them. And eventually you'll give up and hang up and they won't have to be bothered with you.
well,
Telephone company.
yeah, well, I don't know. You know, I mean,
Wi-Fi and all of them.
you are their customer in a lot of cases, you know, like the gas company, the phone company, things, you know, and it would behoove them to communicate with you,
yes.
you know, if they want their bills paid on time, things like that. Yeah. You know, but, you know, like, for example, Maria works for Home Depot. And they brought her a computer and everything out here and got it all set up. And she's on their, not but intranet. So her computer is connected actually to the ones at the corporate office because of the work that she does. And I don't know, you know, she seems to not have any issues with, you know, communicating with people within the company and things like that. And, you know, I don't know. I don't have an answer for why, you know, why an organization like Home Depot can do that and they can all seem to stay pretty well connected. And then if you're an employee of Ford County, you know, you can't find all those people other than via email. And that's, you know, and I think for the most part, you know, a lot of people will or be pretty good at responding to email, but it takes them some time usually. It's not as easy as a phone call. So that's okay. It's just what it is right now. So, and we're going to charge on anyway. Okay, so let's see. I see Jean's forehead.
Well, it's a glare.
There we go. Now I see Jean. Hi, Jean. How you doing?
I'm doing good.
Okay, and okay, and Ilan's still with us. Okay, so I think it's time to get started. Anybody got anything we want to talk about before we get back into the second part of Richard Schmid? Push and paint.
Your email.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your email. I'll be sending you some pictures.
Okay.
Now, is it the 18th that is the final?
Well, I would like them before then. That's kind of like
Okay.
Because
right.
Again, the reason I sent that is I want to encourage everybody to submit something. And again, I don't have the final gist of all the information. So I put out there, look around, find 5 pieces that you think represent you. Okay.
Yes.
They may take 5, they may take 3. I don't know. I don't know what their limitations are going to be, but try to gather up about 5. And the key thing is that before you send them, one, take a good photograph so that they're squared in the frame, and that they're not all like 3/4 angle or something like that, and they're pretty well lit. And then number 2, label them with your name, the title, the dimensions, the price if there is one, the category if it's an oil painting or sculpture or whatever, and then finally, what the medium is. And you see that way they're easy to keep track of. because even if the image ends up in a folder somewhere or something like that, you can immediately tell what it is because it's got your name on it, so we know who it's from. We know what the title of the piece is, things. So it's just easier. And if we're, one of the things we're going to end up having to deal with is when we start taking in all this artwork is the inventory and identifying it. And if we've got a visual reference as to, oh, Veronica sent this piece in, it's titled such and such, it's so big. Oh, okay, that looks like this piece right here, that must be hers. So even if, God forbid, labels and things like that should fall off, you know whose piece it is, or you can find out whose piece it is. So, pardon me.
Okay.
So, that's always been, a good way to do it. And having it actually there on that digital file gives us all the information we need. And, I don't have to fill out a separate form for you because it's all right there. So, okay. So that was kind of the thinking behind that. Now, whether they'll adopt that, and use it, I sent an email to Kermit, and I kind of encouraged him to share that with other instructors and to try to set up, what they're receiving, from their participants, and to try to label them the same way so that they're all consistent. And that way we have a good inventory system of everything that gets turned in, and we can, visually see, what those pieces were. Okay. That was my thinking.
You don't have, if you do not have a frame on it, you wouldn't have any depth to it because it would be a flat piece. Is that correct?
No, not necessarily. Now, if it were a panel, right, like one of those canvas stretch panels, okay, it's not going to have, it's going to have some depth. So call it 1/8 of an inch. Okay. But if it's
If I have acrylic on a small canvas,
right, then it
would be
1 inch thick.
I was thinking about the paper with,
I can't hear you, Jim.
Yeah, well, if it's on a
I'm
piece
sorry?
of paper, if it's on like a piece of watercolor paper or something like that, then just, I don't know,
well, I mean, I'd put a manual on it if I've got one, but if not.
Yeah, well,
I just
and again, yeah, I'm not worried about that so much. The depth is so that we can sort of differentiate, pieces that are on like big, thick gallery wraps that are 3 or 4 inches thick, or 5, versus watercolor that's in a map, and maybe we put a frame on it, or a sculpture, right? That's 16 high, 16 wide, and 16 deep, right? So you know that you're not going to hang that on the wall.
Exactly.
Right. So it's just, it gives people more information about what to plan for, for like cabinets and, display space and what they're actually going to need. Okay. That's my thinking. Plus the amount of wall space, if each of you turned in a piece that were, like 4 foot tall by 8 feet wide, well, that's going to limit the number of pieces that we can hang, right? Depending on the size of the gallery space, we may only be able to get like, 5 or 6 paintings in there. If you all painted on that scale, which, most of you don't, so. But again, it helps you plan.
That means I don't qualify to participate.
Huh?
I
What?
don't qualify to participate.
In what way do you not qualify?
Well, I'm just a beginner, an apprentice.
That's, I don't remember there being any limitations on, oh, well, you have to be a professional selling artist to be able to participate. I didn't see that on there anyway. You know,
We were all beginners. Most of us are beginners.
yeah, actually, there's only one qualification for this, Armando, and you met it, okay, because you are a participant in these classes.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That's the only qualification. Okay,
Thank you.
so you know, so don't let that stop you. In fact, definitely don't let that stop you. And in fact, I would encourage you to put some work out there.
Yeah. I have a small question.
A small question, okay.
I try now when I send somebody birthday or something, I decide not to buy a birthday card. I made it myself.
Okay.
Awesome.
If I use a piece of copy machine paper and I do something with metallic acrylic, it will hold in that piece of paper.
Mm.
Well, there's different types of copy paper. Now you can get an image copied onto what they call a piece of cover stock or card stock.
Say again, cover what?
Cover stock or card stock. And that's got a heavier weight to it.
Yeah.
And you can paint on that all day long and it will be fine. Okay.
Oh,
Now, if you can
okay.
use a regular piece of like white copy paper, I think they call that 80-pound bond or something like that. Once you get it wet, it's going to start falling apart if you scrub on it very much, you know, and it's going to.
What about an inexpensive watercolor piece of paper or a pad?
Well,
He
yeah,
could paint on that.
he could if he wanted to go out and spend that money. It sounds like he doesn't want to though, so you know, but if you're looking for something that's readily available, and you know, you're gonna have to get copy paper from somewhere. Just get a heavier piece, like I said, a piece of cardstock, something like that. You can go to the UPS store, you know, FedEx, you know, and you know, buy a couple of sheets of paper off of them, you know, the cardstock or whatever. It's not very much, and then go home, do your thing. Or while you're there,
they've got for
Huh?
they've got for $1 at the Dollar Tree a little like a 5x7 canvas. You could use that
Yeah.
for a birthday
Yeah, I
card.
saw those. Yeah, I saw those small canvas in
Yeah.
the dollar store.
You could use that for a birthday card.
yeah, you could. Yeah, I mean,
Armando, Armando, it's not my birthday.
No, it's one of my, in this complex, it's a bunch of widows that are driving me crazy.
Oh, okay.
And so one of them, her birthday is next week.
Armando,
Yes.
it must be terrible to have first world problems, isn't it? Oh well. Here,
I don't know what they see in me. I'm a fat, ugly old man.
okay.
And I don't know.
Here, watch this. Okay, you see this? You see my fingers moving?
They do have, I don't.
Yeah, that's the world's smallest violin, right?
But they have more than me. They don't need the little bit that I have.
We're playing you a very sad song. Okay,
Yeah. A bleeding heart.
I know. Don't you feel bad for him? Okay. Anyway, all right. You guys ready for Richard Schmidt? Anybody else got any questions? Anything we need to
Let's
talk
go
about?
for Mr.
We're going with Richard Smith again? Okay.
Yeah. Well, the second part. Yeah, we didn't finish it. Okay. And
All right.
that's our goal, is to finish it today, and that way next week we can go on to dealing with something else, because I've actually got a couple of people I want to show you that you might actually get kind of excited about. They're doing some interesting stuff. Okay. But yeah, we're going to do Richard today and finish it up. Okay.
Okay.
And, you know, he's got some good stuff, even though he rambles a bit. But that's why we love him. So, anyway, kind of like us. Anybody noticing how we ramble lately? You know,
Yeah.
we kind of go off.
But it's all good. It's all good.
It is. All right. All right, and away we go.
This is the first foregrounds that I'm going to be borrowing sections from. Up here, we have the rocks. But I'm only going to use
Whoop.
certain rocks. I'm going to redesign this.
Could you make the sound a little louder?
Yeah.
One could use these
All right.
elements
Better?
to give some interest right in here. I'm not going to be using any of the bottom of this photograph. Now, here's the second of the foregrounds that I'm going to be using. This photograph, the foreground of the photograph. This area here, well, it's the middle left actually, plus the whole bottom of the photograph. These are the interesting elements that I'm going to take from this photo, and I'm going to insert them in some way down here, give me balance off some of this wonderful yellow color that I have up in this area and down in here, and some of these little contrast areas, these very dark darks, beautiful variety of greens, and some of these browns and tans are all going to be little abstract shapes to give interest to this foreground. So this is how I'm going to select only from this area and not take part of this rather boring part up on top, except I do like these little touches of red and red-orange that I'm going to be using. Now let me show you the third one that I'm going to try and select from. In this third photograph, there's only a very small portion of this that I'm interested in, and it is right up to this area where these trees, branches, the leaves, the branches of the trees, and this color of these tiny little trees are against a light background. And what I'm going to do with this is I have two things I want. I'm going to use these shapes, these characteristic shapes of the branches and leaves, and I'm going to use those to introduce some very modest vertical shapes right in here to offset that, what I consider to be a very disturbing curve going down this way in the original photograph. I'm also going to use some of these golden colors and some of these lovely greens in here, just to deviate somewhat from this overly saturated green harmony. So let's get started and see if this works. That's okay. That's now I'm going to add just a bit of iridium and yellow ochre light. Yeah, I'm sorry, cadmium yellow light to this mixture. Introduce a little bit more green. There we are. And I'm going to put some darks, transparent darks with a mixture of transparent oxide red and glycerin crimson, and a touch of ultramarine blue. These are going to be the darks that will form the shadows under the rocks. Now, in this photograph that I'm working from, I'm only going to select a few of these rocks. In this area, this area, this area. And to do that, this sort of pattern where it goes down like that. These represent the shadows. Now, palette knife, I've got some white, a little bit of cobalt blue, a little iridium, and a little transparent oxide red. Mix that into a nice gray. I'm going to vary this mixture. Notice all the rocks aren't going to be exactly the same color. Now I'm going to vary the colors and values just slightly from one group of rocks to another, just so we're not using the same color over and over again. Because that's the way it really happens out here. In this rocky terrain of New England, we have some rocks behind here. They're slightly different color. You don't want to get them all the same shape. Why? Because they're not all the same shape, although they have the same characteristic shapes. They are flat and angular rather than rounded rocks. Some of them have moss on them. Now I'm going to put a little bit of shadow tonight into that rock there. The touches can mean so much. Just as in romance, the little touches mean so much. It's the same in painting. The large areas are important, but so are the small touches. There we are, the little touches. Now for some more of these rocks. I'm going to mix a little bit of cadmium red into this mixture just to keep varying the color a little bit more and get what we want. And it may not look that different on the video, but it certainly looks different in reality. Mix up a little bit of color for that shadow. This is still cool light and warm shadow light out here. We want to make sure that the darks just a little bit warmer. The lights, once we do that, it's going to be okay. Temperature is the important thing, getting that consistent throughout the evening. Temperature of the light, that's what creates the light. And the light balance too, which ultimately gives us the light temperature. By light balance, I mean how much red is in the light, how much blue, how much yellow, or in the parlance of light engineers, will be how much magenta, cyan, and green, I guess. That's what they talk about. Whatever it is, it's a mixture of the three primaries, how much of each is in the light source that we're working within. That's what gives us the harmony. The more green and blue there is in the light, cooler the light. The more yellow and red there is in the light source, the warmer the light will be. It's a cool light source, lots of blue and green, and shadows are going to be warm. Shadows, which means the shadows are going to contain more red, more yellow, and the opposite is true for warm light. Warm light is going to have more red and yellow in the lights, and more blues and greens and purples in the darks. And if you remember that, apply it, you're pretty much home free. Anything you paint. fundamental to understanding light and color. Now, some of these green leaves. Now we can see the colors that I'm putting in here are now clearly apparent in these areas. See the leaves that are beginning to turn here, and then the ones that have not turned yet, they're still brilliantly yellow. I'm going to start to put those colors in. What an opportunity. Nature gives us this feast of color. She's a good mother, but she is unpredictable and often cruel, at least in her terms. Cruel, indifferent to our suffering, especially when we try to capture the color. Most of us artists, when asked what the hard part of art is, will always say color. Not all of us, but most of us will say that. It does remain a mystery for many artists. I'm not sure why. To me, it's not a mystery anymore. It's an opportunity. I understand it. I understand how it works, why it looks the way it does, what makes it look the way it does. And I try and convey those things. And I talk to others. But it's still an elusive thing, and I think the elusiveness of color is due, what we call it, to its complexity. The elusiveness of a clear understanding of it. That it doesn't give us simple reasons for why it behaves the way it does or why it looks the way it does. But what I told you earlier, you understand a few fundamental things about color, like color temperature, as I just talked about. Those things like that are keys to understanding the behavior of color. And it's no longer a mystery after that. Or if it is a mystery, it's because we choose to keep it a mystery. Color is a wonderful, it has a wonderful thing about it, in that unlike many things, where the more you understand it, the more you dissolve the mystery, so to speak, the less interesting it becomes. Color, the more you understand about it, the more of the fascination of it seems to grow. Building this up gradually, working, represent the grasses and things, working these back and forth with the color of the rocks, and then the weeds peeking out here and there. Now, with all of the rocks are not that dark color, so quite light. Here I'm using more gray mixtures. The one that I'm working on now, this is going to be the color of some of the lighter rocks and even some of the soil showing through. And this is where I'm starting to use a little bit of transparent oxide red with iridium. And I'm still trying to stay within that harmony. The harmony created by cool temperature, cool light temperature. I just saw something I can't do. I see something happening in here that is, the painting is telling me to do something, and I am going to do it. It's not in the photograph, but I'm going to do it anyway. I see this line coming up, which could be the line of beautiful branch. It's so perfect. It gives some interest to that area there. We can look at this more closely. When I'm finished with it.
Why don't you turn the air conditioner on?
Very more interesting. There's so much abstract color in here. And to have one thing pop out like this branch, this thing growing up out of the ground, doesn't matter what it is, if it serves its purpose. It gives such meaning to everything else. Everything else I put in, like leaves, twig, grass, after I put this in. In fact, it started out just as a sort of scratch, accidental scratch. See if we can touch this. I just a little bit right on the edge here of this knife. Took off a little too much. Put some back on there. Now I'm mixing cadmium yellow deep with white just to get an accent color on this little thing here. Give it a little more. There. Isn't that nice? Yeah, a little bit more at the top. I'll stop fooling around with this. Get serious. There we go. Now, what I would like to do is leave this area and start working to the left here, my left. All right, now I have the second photograph up there, and I'm going to be using mainly this area here, and I'm going to be using some of these colors right at the bottom of the photograph, and this, I can't see it from this distance, but this beautiful, beautiful red, orange, and a deep red leaf or flower or something up in there. It doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to finish touches of yellow first, just so I have my color notes over on this side, something I can shoot for. See how bright I'm going to get. Now these will look even brighter when I get the green in behind it. And of course, it will be repainted. Now, what I'm doing here is simply taking off some of the excess paint. A couple of those notes will occur down here too. And then those red colors too, they will appear here. All serves to bring the painting together, the repetition of these notes. Counterpoint, so to speak. We don't want to dawdle on this. We don't want to be too slow. I don't want to remain in I want to remain in control. I always want to put this in the first person. I don't know. You paint with this. I. Okay. Picking up color from this. Saving the colors. I mean, saving these little yellows here. I've already seen what that effect is. You need some darks in there. Okay. Dark, warm colors that appear here, down in the foreground, and mostly mixtures of transparent oxide red, a little bit of getting yellow, and some green. I can vary this color. Go along, add reds to it, and violet colors, many colors. The grass is anything but all green. Every color of the rainbow is there. We get to the other side here. Some of these darks, very dark indeed. So what I'm mixing here is alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue. We see some darks here. Now I'm going to just keep adding color here. This is more or less my underpainting. A little bit darker, a little bit darker. Add a little red to it, a little gradient. And some more dark, just a bit of curve. Right up in there, a little bit more green. Thinking out loud here. There we go. One thing I don't want to do is get a cool dark in there. Just pop out as being very wrong. This light green. Go up this way. Now I'm almost ready now here to put some vertical strokes in. I'll just dig and suggest them. Then I'll come back down here. Get the rest of the screen. We don't have too much more. We don't. I don't. Now this is going to be very interesting as I add more and more of the screen and little bits of the background color that I put in there, that preparatory color, show through. This whole area is going to just flatten out and take on meaning. Watch how this happens. Another example. I'm altering the screen very slightly. It's basically a mixture of, here you can see it on the palette here. This is a mixture of Viridian, okay, a bit of white, middle tone about number 5, middle tone on the value scale, and I'm adding to it both yellow ochre. I have actually 3. Can we see this? There's 3 types of yellow ochre here. 3 different brands. One very light and warmer. This is the winter yellow ochre. The old yellow ochre I've used. This is winter yellow ochre. We're adding that. Let's put some of this on here. It's the color of the grass, the tonic note, the note that predominates throughout the area. I learned how to identify this and paint it. Now it's in England, trying to capture the wonderful English Yorkshire green that seems to pervade not only England, but Ireland and southern Scotland. How pervasive this color is to the area. It repeats that note over and over again. Now, if I get too much on there, I don't want it to interfere with what I'm doing, so I can tell it just a bit of it without interfering with the impasto appearance of the color. The color doesn't, pigment doesn't actually have to be physically thick on the canvas in order to appear heavily painted. It's what it looks like, not what it is, that is important in art, this kind of art. In fact, that's all this kind of art is. When you start to think about it, it's not what it is, it's what it looks like, right? The whole thing is an illusion. Sargent talking about clouds, painting clouds. The clouds looked like whipped cream, so I painted them as if they were whipped cream. I noticed a similar thing too when I was much younger. A line of trees on the field in the late afternoon, the field in autumn, with a line of white pine trees looked like green velvet on the lady's dress. And so I painted it as if it was green velvet. I didn't put the lady in them. I mean, after all, they were still white trees. This is the part of the painting I love. All seems to be coming together. Everything starts to mean something. By that I mean that it looks like something real. It's a gradual process. If I go too fast on this, I start applying the paint almost mechanically, as if I'm not thinking. I can remember that this is a living field of grass with rocks and other plants and bushes. They don't all grow in the same direction. Each of these little clumps of living material has its own character. And a brush stroke, I have to remind myself, my brush strokes have to have that same wonderful variety that give it the look of authenticity. Notice how I'm cleaning my palette again and again and again. I don't know how many times I've done it in the course of this painting, but I can assure you that's one reason why the color is so nice in this painting, if I do say so myself. I mean, it's partly because I'm very conscious of keeping my color clean. By that I mean, what is clean color? Clean color is color that has an identity to it. It hasn't been mixed and mixed and mixed, and you can't tell what family it is or give it a name. I like my colors when they go on the canvas to get somebody to be able to point their finger at it and say, that's a blue, that's a red, violet. So give colors. Step back. In this type of impressionist painting, our eye blends them together, and then they turn into waves, and then they become a homogeneous grouping of colors. That behaves the way nature does. It makes it look real. The old definition of the painter's definition of impressionism is it's nothing up close and everything at a short distance. Now, I forgot to put the D down here. Here we go. Just with the use of Viridian plus the yellows plus cobalt blue and ultramarine blue and so on and so on. It's the greenest green, the most neutral spectrum green that I think we have available to us. The green out of which one can mix all the other greens one needs. I work my way up interrupting that line. I don't wonder what that is. It's going to be part of the general confusion here in the grass. Now, I don't want it to look like the tree is growing right through the grass. So I need to interrupt this dark that goes down.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'll go ahead and put it.
Yeah,
Thank you so
they're fresh baked, but they're frozen, so they'll fall out.
much. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Taking this off because I mixed a little bit of medium with it. Want that should be consistency on the palette. It is most workable in the consistency that it comes out of the tube. The ideal working, at least for me, it's the ideal working consistency for paint. To make it thicker by removing the oil or making it much thinner by thinning it out with a medium. The more that's done, the less control one has, the less predictable the paint is, where it will go. So far, we're doing pretty good. This is still a little bit busy meaning that it's so many little lights and darks, so on compared to what I'm working on. But I will bring that together as I go along. I'm going to now start introducing some violet greens up in this area because we have a sort of foggy background, and gray, blue violets, gray reds are starting to creep in. Plus, there's some of that in the local color. So for that, I'm going to mix Viridian with alizarin crimson. It's not a mixture that most people would go to. There's the alizarin and there's Viridian. That is going to give me a sort of gray violet color. So that, compared to, for example, a mixture of blue and sparkly blue, which is giving quite a brilliant violet. And by comparison, difference in saturation. Both of these colors, like a little version of the American flag. Very good. Now, fun to mix these colors in the red and being in the greens all day. There we go. I'll use some of this in the fork now. Violet colors, not violent, violet. Up in, I don't know if this is the way Monet did it. I think he dabbed at it. It looks like he put his colors down in a rather discreet little packets of color, pretty much all the same size and shape. So I roll the brush, and that works sometimes. Send off a lot of paint on it. Now that friction of the paint itself, as it touches the canvas, drag that paint off. As opposed to the sort of thing where you actually touch the canvas. That's an actual classic brush stroke. Okay. Nothing wrong with it. Everything has its useful time and place here on the canvas. Further integrate colors on a canvas by carefully scraping them when you're doing here on these short scraping strokes, dragging one color into another. I wipe it each time, so I'm always starting out with a clean edge. I can even pick up color from the palette. Oops, let me do that. There we go. This is an entirely different type of effect. Put the paint on. Pretty. And drag it up the brush. Now I'm mixing rosa and yellow, ochre, and white creates some vertical strokes that will represent the twigs and things growing out of the grass. The idea of creating the effect of a wild field of wild grass against the stone wall that's characteristic of New England stone wall. Things growing up like that. And on that things repeat themselves and so on. Uh-oh. Yeah, that's better. Now, cover this up. This is the part that gets worked on. We're looking pretty much at the finishing. Not much more to do on this side. I want to stop and edge down. See if I can do that. 2 strokes. I don't want to see if I can do it in 1 or 2 strokes to show off. I want to do it. Showing off is fun too. Let's see what we can do. 1. Oh boy, we got 1 more stroke to go. Huh? 2. Number 2. 3, 2, 3, 4, 5. Aha. Don't tell anyone I cheated. 1 or 2 strokes. Now continuing my way across, the grass goes up, covering part of the darks. You don't want the soft edges of the darks. There we go. Getting there. Yeah, I'm working right down in this area now. First the dark and green, upward. I'm going to overpaint this with slightly darker green. And I don't want the grass to appear as if it's growing out of the bottom of the picture frame. So we don't want to all coming out the same direction. Might be useful at this point. Interrupt that slightly. Paper towels are this tool for painting. Not a whole lot, but once in a while it can be very also scraping. Simplify it for scraping like that. I know that when I step back and look at this, it looks great. There. I'm just going to work my way through here a little bit. Create that. And I need a few more dark colors in here because I'm going to be preparing an area to receive the yellow flowers. So I'll just simplify the whole area. Well, I'm also concerned that we don't want to look like the grass begins right at the bottom. So I'm trying to fix that right now. It's slightly lighter green bottom. Let's see what this does. I have on brush just a bit of medium. There's no paint on there. I'm just going to draw that down. Each time I do that, it picks up a little bit of paint on the line. Smooth out that area. Now I need dark area ready. Show some of that rock wall back in there. Then I'm ready for the fun part here. Slightly darker and slightly more. Now I'm ready for those wonderful yellow yellow leaves, yellow and red and orange leaves. And I'm going to mix up a series of colors here. That'll be one pile. And then cadmium lemon and cadmium lemon and white. This is going to be interesting to see what happens here. It's not that this is an accident. I'm not waiting to see if an accident happens, but we can't tell 100% what something is going to look like just by seeing it on the palette. At least I can. I have to see it on the painting to see how what I put on, see what it looks like relative to the rest of the painting. Yeah, making a progression. It's almost like a little color chart here. Making a progression of colors, marching from yellow to red. And I'm not mixing them all that thoroughly. And that, now for the darkest red area. Isn't that beautiful? Now, mankind's first painting tool, the thumb, forefinger, still as good as ever. Now this is ready to receive these lovely colors here. First, I'm going to decide where it comes in. Very dark at the top and very light at the bottom. So we're going to have there we go. Gets a little warmer down here. I'm mixing a little bit of Terra Rosa with yellow ochre, white. To be the base of that little bit. All of this is in preparation for what's to come. Now, This is wonderful. This is where I feel like I'm really playing God, creating living things. Applying it with God, like element like this, really makes it look like it's so sharp edges. See how this, the work underneath that was preparatory work really makes that grow, makes the final strokes so third dimensional. They stand right out. I'm going to add some green leaves now. Now it doesn't look too green, but a little more radiant to it. There you go. Now I'm going to mix up a brilliant violet color because that color is actually in the photo and even more brilliant in real life. During the break, I went out and I took a look at my subject, which is just outside the studio. And indeed, these colors are actually there in all their glory. And they're not just isolated in one or restricted to one area of the painting. These colors repeat themselves like across the board. It takes very few of these brush strokes to explain an area. And I always have to resist the temptation to overdo it, put in too much. I want to keep it in character with the way these actually appear on the branches. There are also some very brilliant yellow greens here. These are mixtures of cadmium yellow. Still the yellow family, but there's that wonderful green in there that you just pick up the feathers and tip of my knife. introducing green now. Kind of it's one of the pure colors up here. It's a yellow green. So we're not all the orange family. These colors are really, really there. Two of them here on this side as well. This is where judgment comes in. Delicate line between overdoing it and doing it to spectacular effect. Let's get real close in here. Now some cadmium red, just a touch of white. Cool. They're really not there. Like eating gumdrops. Now this line right here, it's a little hard to me. I'm going to modify that by adding some green edge. Show it a little bit. A bit more yellow green in there. There. Now there's some overly soft, overly light areas right there. Likely so that yellows stand out just a little bit more. If I can do that. There. Very good. Right in there. And behind it. So far, so good. Now I'm going to leave this area. I'll come back to that someday, but right now I want to stand up and I want to take a long look at this and see where I am. I'm fairly happy with this because I've got the color and I've got the interest in there. I want to now go back up in here, make a few more adjustments. Instead of having a single curve that way, I can emphasize this branch going out to balance off that thing that seems to be going in a funny direction. And I just want to introduce a few more greens here and a couple coming down this way, and then a few prominent spots of color in the midsection. Just briefly though, I'd like to go into the third photograph, bring that up on my monitor. There we are. Now, this is not the world's greatest photograph. This line going down the middle is a power line or a phone line or something. But we're not interested in that. I'm interested in this, the character of this drawing. And I may just sort of introduce that just a little bit up in here. Let us see some middle ground marching away into the distance. And I like this sweep of triangle created here. Try and indicate that very, very lightly. So that this doesn't look like entirely like a no man's land. And I think we might be able to mix that with cobalt blue, white, and let's see what that looks like. Maybe a little bit cooler. I'm going to do this. Got it? Okay. I've looked at this and assessed it as a series of triangles. There's one triangle, top, side, bottom. And a couple of things coming up this way. I'm going to modify this one way. And then it's taller one coming up here. A couple of little more triangles here. There. I just thought this area over here needed just a tiny bit more interest. In reality, it didn't have any interest. There was nothing on it. Why? I'm going to use my prerogative as the creator of this non-existent scene. Well, it exists in part. That's the consequence. Do any of us really care if any of the pictures we love so much were actually there or are still there? Some of them are. Many of the things that Monet painted, Sargent painted, still exist. London Bridge, for example, Parliament, the English period. Much of the coastline of France that Monet painted still there. Many of the things that I painted are still there. Connecticut, Indiana, Chicago, Northwest, Alaska. No, in Alaska, there's a waterfall that I painted. It's in my book, which doesn't exist anymore because the Alaska Highway Department decided clearing the traffic. So they dynamited beautiful waterfall out of existence. I mentioned that for what it's worth. Personally, I'd rather create things like trees and waterfalls, even if it's in a painting, and dynamite them out of existence. There are a few things I like to dynamite out of existence, but the law won't allow me. It's starting to look like something now, isn't it? Give me an encouraging word. Inserting something like this into the background, I have to be careful that it looks like what it's supposed to look like, and that the care in doing that is a matter of controlling the value and temperature of the rays that go into the area, so that they blend, but they blend so much and they stand out just right. It's like the journey through life, the tightrope walk between what works and what doesn't work. Painting is like chess in that sense, don't you think? Don't you agree? Yes. I know you all agree. Now I want the transition between this line and this area to be a little softer, so that we get that feeling of atmosphere. And here again, transition has to be subtle and yet clear enough that we know that that is far away and this is closer. And it's not too difficult. See what I'm doing? Just lightening and cooling this whole edge a little bit. Dragging a little bit of that cool color downward. There. Now this little dark right on that edge will feel has to be fixed a little bit. It smacks of an outline a little much, so that's better. That works a little better. I need to bring out just a little more green on this side. Just a little bit. pull this down. Bring a few dark greens in here. Adjust the bottom of this. First start with this. Pops out of the ground a little too quickly. What that means is that value is too bright on the bottom. And I'm going to accentuate this line a little bit more. Give it a little bit more value and color. There we are. That's better. That's dark greens. Too dark. I'm using a little bit of cadmium yellow deep with a little bit of iridium and transparent upside brown. You have to be careful because this area was all put in with galvanite. I don't want to disturb that. There. Almost got it now. Almost. I'm getting a little bit of glare on those brush strokes. Modify these brush strokes. So track marks are going this way. I'm just going to very lightly hit the tops of those. Hope this shows up. Very important to know how to do this. Glare interferes. I'd like to see it. Get rid of it. I hope that this demonstration provided some insight into the problems of working on photograph. Ways to use the technology that's available to us today to its best advantage. It's a marvelous technology. Of course, it should never be a crutch. never rely upon this sort of thing to provide us with what we think is a way to overcome, what shall we say, delicately, a lack of skill or a lack of perception. We should never forget when we work from a photograph. That photograph is what the camera sees, not what we see. We are actively involved with nature or whatever subject we choose. When we are painting the life, we are the recording device. We see things through our own psychology and our own life experience, our own knowledge, our own emotions. None of those can be caught by a camera. The best the camera can do is give us what the drawing looks like, to some extent what the light and color looks like. They can never, ever match what we see with our own experience. We are the artists. We are the observers of the world. Cameras and machines. We are not machines. We respond to our environment, to our friends, to everything that we paint. In some way, we respond. And in doing so, to some extent, our subject responds to us, especially if that subject is another person. And that is something no machine can ever record. Don't forget what I said in All Freedom. No camera was ever in love with its subject. No camera ever had an opinion about its subject. No camera ever experienced fear, or for that matter, experienced anything that a human being experiences. Only we people can experience life as we live it. The camera can merely remind us of it and provide us certain visual details. Now, if your skill is very high, and if your ability to observe is very acute, a photo, if it's a good photo, a useful photo, can be useful. It can stimulate our memory of an experience. But don't forget, it's no substitute for the real thing, okay? Art and sex are very much alike in that sense, but there's no substitute for the real thing. And it alone provides us with a basis for translating something that an artificial recording device like a camera can provide us. It has to make up for what's lacking. The camera has no brain, only a chip. So that brings me to the end of this painting. This marvelous little adventure. And it was a little adventure, but it was still a marvelous adventure. I'm glad you were able to share the pleasure of this day of painting with me. This 2 days of painting. I hope we've explored the use of photography so that it becomes something that is a tool for us and not a crutch for us. I know it won't be for you. So happy days, happy painting.
There you go. Yay, we made it. Okay, let's unmute everybody.
Okay.
All right.
I agree with Bernice. I thought that it was amazing that those brush strokes, all of those brush strokes just look like a conglomeration of nothing. And then when you look at when you see the whole painting, it fits. And it's very, very nice work he does.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, the thing about Richard Schmid, the thing that people love about his work is the brushwork, the color, how expressive, you know, those paint strokes and things are. And yet, you know, when you step back, you know, just a couple of feet, it all kind of falls together and becomes the thing that he was painting. And that's, you know, that's that whole impressionist sort of premise or idea, which is, you know, nobody wants to look at a painting, you know, with their nose right up against the canvas. You know, it's when you see paintings, you usually see them from like across the room, and that's kind of what you want to judge is, does it look like the thing I was painting, you know, when I'm like 10 feet away? You know, about the only time you really want to look at a painting, you know, that's really, really close up is if you're an artist and you really want to try to figure out the technique. You know, how did they do that? How did they layer the paint? What colors did they mix? You know, what's the optical illusion, you know, that they're trying to use here, you know, to convey the idea, you know, of this painting, or to make it feel a certain way. So that's kind of the beauty of it, you know. At the end of the day, it's just a bunch of color thrown down there on a canvas or on a piece of paper or board, and yet it still looks like a person, place, or thing, you know, or at least makes you feel something, and that gets more into the abstract part of it.
So I can just throw some paint down and it will eventually become.
That's the idea, darling. You throw some paint down there, and you know, I mean, obviously you throw it down there in a certain way or a certain order, and it begins to look more like something. You know, I mean, it's probably not just stand back across the room and throw bags of paint at it. Though, if you want to paint abstract paintings, I've seen people do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they get paid thousands.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know, some of that.
But-
Yeah, sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. You know.
I learned something new from him that I had not considered. At the beginning, he showed us his
Yeah, let me know.
picture, and he used two others to complete it. So I guess in composing a painting, you can just pull 2 or 3 different paintings and combine them the way you like them, and you have a different painting.
Yeah. Well, you can use as many sources of information as you want. You know, it doesn't all have to be sitting right there, and you know, there's no rule that you have to paint it exactly the way you see it. In fact, you know, a lot of plein air artists, one of the skills of plein air is to simplify and to recompose, you know, into something that's more interesting and more dynamic than maybe what you're looking at. You know, you may have a telephone pole or, you know, something that, you know, some people might leave out, but maybe that telephone pole, if it were put in the right place, you know, could be an interesting element, you know, because it's a hard edge vertical, right, that breaks the horizon line. And so, you know, maybe you could use that. Maybe you could use a series of them to give you this sense of depth and distance, you know, as they move, you know, down and away from you, you know, across a field or a hill. So, you know, everything's fair game. And, you know, you as an artist, you know, you're looking at things and you're interpreting it. It's like, okay, you know, do I want to add that into the painting? Do I want to eliminate it? Do I want it somewhere else? You know, how can I use it? You know, how can I take this thing that I'm seeing and use it to better effect, to express, you know, what it is that I want to say about this, the subject that I'm painting. So, I mean, you're creating your own world. That's what you're doing. So, not just copying it. So, And I think the difference between a lot of amateur artists and professional artists is that you get to a certain point after painting for a while where you realize that, okay, yeah, I can paint, and I'm getting pretty good at putting things exactly where they are and kind of getting the scale and proportion of things. But at that point, it kind of becomes a little bit dull, and it kind of becomes a little bit not as challenging anymore, because you're getting good at those things and you have to push yourself further. And it's like, okay, so I'm good at this part and I can make it look like the thing I'm painting, but how do I make it more interesting? How do I say more with it? How do I tell somebody maybe how I feel about what I'm seeing, not just what I'm seeing? How can I impart a particular emotion? Whether it's, gives you a positive or even a negative emotion. How can I convey that in this painting? And so, it's like anything else with art, you start peeling layers of the onion, and there's always another layer. There's always another challenge, no matter how long you paint. So you could paint, for the next.
He certainly makes the case for painting from life rather than from pictures.
Right. Well, now, he, like a lot of professional artists, will always tell you there's a huge difference between painting from a photograph and painting from life. And for me, I guess the way I would explain it is, when I'm painting from a photograph, yeah, I can do a nice, accurate, painting, and technically it's, it looks like the thing I'm painting, but there's always something missing. It doesn't have that emotional quality to it that, it's like that emotional response. It's like when I'm outdoors painting a tree or a creek or something like that, when people look at that, they get kind of a sense of how I felt about that creek. If I paint that same creek from a photograph, it doesn't seem to impart that same feeling. It may be a good technical painting, but there's just no juice to it for some reason. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Bernice?
You're saying that we can transfer our feelings through our paintbrushes onto the canvas?
Well,
There you go.
They
That's
do.
good. That's a good summary.
They do, because, basically, and that goes back to that idea that you as an artist, you're a filter. You're a filter for the world and your experiences. And everything that pours out in your drawings and paintings and things that you do, you end up out there, in that paint, on that canvas. Who you are, how you feel about things, how you view the world, it all shows up out there. You can't, if you're one of these people who you're reclusive and you don't want the world to know who you are, the last thing you want to do is make a mark on a piece of paper or paint something. Because when you do, it's all out there. People can see it. People can feel it. So
even when you can't really capture the image you're after?
Yeah, especially, many times, especially when you can't capture the image that you're after. That frustration, sometimes shows up. In fact, often shows up.
Mine must really be showing up on that painting.
Yeah, that's not totally true. I mean, you're actually a very good painter. Like anything else. I think, and I don't know you well. Okay. I mean, I know a little bit about you from these classes. But the thing I would say about probably at least 80% of you is that all of you are good, competent artists. You just have to spend more time painting. You know, it's that, you know, putting that work in.
My whole day now.
All day now? Well,
It's taking my whole day now.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
yeah, but look at it this way, okay? You know, your days will go by even faster. You know, you won't be bored, you know? So, you know, you'll have lots of stuff to do, but also your skills will improve rapidly by doing it. It's the only way you get to do it. You know, that's the only way you get good. You can have all the ideas and theories and everything else in the world, but until you actually put it in the time, you know, with paint out in front of you and you're slapping it up there, you know, and manipulating it and learning what you can do with it and how you can move it around, you know. I mean, that's the only way to get there. And the more you do it, the more efficient and better you're going to get at it. So that painting that took you, you know, 20 or 30 hours, you know, is going to maybe end up taking you 10, you know, once you get really comfortable with moving with it. And of course, then you'll start putting more and more things, you know, in your painting, because we're gluttons for punishment and we are always looking for ways.
I gotta go. Bye, y'all.
You know, I think, I don't know, just my case, but at this point in our lives, having worked for 50 years and 60 years and retired, we're not looking to make a livelihood out of painting. And I think that diminishes the drive to actually paint every day for long periods and keep painting.
Mm-hmm.
I could be wrong.
Well, and, you know, I mean, I'm not saying you have to spend 24 hours a day at the easel, you know, but painting every day, you know, setting aside a half hour, 45 minutes, so you can go work on something, you know, push a little paint around, things like that. You know, that's all you need. It's like with drawing. What do I ask you to do when you know, with drawing? I want you to draw 5 minutes a day. That's it. You know, make sure just to pick up a pencil and, you know, draw something, you know, kind of connect your mind to your hand. And, you know, what you'll find is that before you know it, your drawing skills will improve greatly just by doing that. You don't have to draw for hours. And generally what happens is you start off drawing 5 minutes a day and all of a sudden 45 minutes to an hour has gone by with your 5 minutes of drawing. You know? So anyway.
That's what happens. It's not 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, but
5 becomes 50.
yeah, but you see, that's
Right.
see that's the diabolical plan, you know. All I have to do is get you in there for 5 minutes, and before you know it, you know, it's like you build up the habit of doing it, and before you know it, you know, you're there for an hour or two, and it's gone by really quickly, and you never noticed it. So.
Well, Charles, I think Eloise gets the award for the most pithy statement today. You can transfer your feelings through your paintbrushes onto the canvas. I've written that down. Good quote.
Yep. There you go. That was an eloquent way of saying it. So, yeah. All right. Anybody got any questions about anything with Richard Schmid that we need to cover before we go away?
No, not now.
Not now, huh? You know more than you ever wanted to know about him, huh?
No. Maybe later.
Maybe later. Okay, yes.
Yeah, as I process what we watched.
Yeah. Okay. And you can find that. You can find that on YouTube. Okay.
Okay.
I'm surprised because usually you can find like little short demonstrations, but this came out of China, and somebody in China posted this whole video, which was great because You very rarely ever get to watch one of those full videos, and you can learn just tons just by watching, you know, what he's doing, you know, how he uses the brush, and, you know, he moves things, you know, back and forth, stumbling them and then knocking them back or tapping them back a little bit. You can learn a lot of nifty stuff from that.
Yes.
Anyway, I guess since we're whittled down to 6 from 12, I guess most people had to leave. All right, I guess we'll see each other tomorrow. Send me some work. You know, if you're working on stuff and you want to get some feedback on it or whatever, send me an email. Okay.
Okay.
I just sent you one I need help with.
All right. That's what tomorrow's all about. Okay.
That's right. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See ya.